What's up, folks? This is Rosaura Figueroa Mendoza, Rosa Salvaje, coming at you with Haystack Mujer TV. And I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Julio. Super dope dude. Owner of Brews and Brats out in downtown Hayward, who sponsored this episode. So thank you so much, Julio, for believing in Haystack Mujer TV, and we're just going to keep growing from here. So today we have a very special guest. We have Adrian Avila, who is an art director here at Silicon Valley Debug. We're actually here in the basement of Debug. He's a graphic designer, printer, and owner of After Dark, and so you're going to get to hear a little bit more about his story. So con eso, I want to give it up to Adrian. And kind of, I guess what we can start with is like, how did you start off with your work in Debug? You know, Debug is such a huge organization. If you're from San Jose or if you're from the area, people know who Debug is and what Debug does. So how did you begin your work here at Debug?
So thank you for having me. So my journey with Debug is, it's been quite a long one now. So I've been with the organization about 17 years. I was a junior in high school when I first heard of Debug. A friend of mine knew I was into art, so I was kind of like a graffiti writer at, during those ages, anywhere from like 11 to 16. And I always knew that my identity, I didn't want to be a graffiti writer. That's not where my end goal was. I wanted to be an artist. I always, I grew up kind of like in the golden era of San Jose graffiti, where, graffiti crews, 30 deep, 20 deep, would jump on a bus, rock the whole bus, and then get off, and then the whole bus would be full. And I like that energy, but my respect and love for it was always with the art, colors, shape, form, design. And so there was a couple artists that I grew up with, like admiring in San Jose. Samuel Rodriguez, Smog, Force 129, Fernando Amaro Jr. Were like two of my big influencers. And they were painting bridges in different ways. They were using kind of bright colors, different style painting, techniques, just opposed from, spray can. They're using house paint, reflective paint, things like that. So for whatever reason, my eye was kind of drawn to their aesthetic. And so when I was, junior in high school, I graduated. We graduated the junior year going into summer. And I had a buddy of mine who was like, you're not going to do anything in the summer. You should come with me. I know where Sam and Fernando both work, and we can go hang out with them. So it happened to be a resource center that was ran by the city. It was a youth resource center where Sam and Fernando both taught art.
What year was this?
This was 2001, so 2001, summer 2001, going into senior year. And so I step into he takes me, we step into the center, and I see Sam and I see Fernando. They're working on art, and they're teaching youth similar to my age painting, and that was it. Like, I was hooked. Sam and Fernando were both also working with Debug. Sam was the art director at Debug at the time, and Fernando was a graphic designer and writer, illustrator as well with the organization. And we just kind of became friends, and we hit it off. And mainly what they were big influences on me was how to be an artist. So I was going from an identity of just gotten recently caught for doing graffiti, so I was also seeing myself as somewhat of a criminal. Not that I see myself, but that's kind of the label that was placed on me. And I always knew I wanted to be an artist, so they kind of helped me make that transformation. And it was a very beautiful one. They never they never made me feel like I was less than them, or that they were better than me in any way. It was just, hey, get in it, let's do it. Probably within a month and a half, we already had put together an art show from the youth from the center and the neighborhood, and it was probably one of the best art shows I've ever been to. Not just because I helped create it, but it was probably like 15 people, youth of color, at a time where September 11th had just happened, and the tensions were really bad for people of color and immigrants. And it was, here's a show where 300 plus people came and were buying art, enjoying music and community. So for me, that was my first kind of insight to the power of design, art, and community. And that, even though I didn't know it, that was all Debug. Its principles, its guidelines, even though it was a different, it was a city-ran organization, and but the members from that organization came from Debug, and and their philosophies also came there. So the natural transition was just, hey, why don't you just come to Debug? After that center closed down, I just started coming to Debug more often. And I came with the identity of an illustrator and a designer, or mainly as an illustrator artist, and that I had taken from the center. And it was really the organization saying, well, what is there more to you than just you being an artist? What other story can you tell? Because you can definitely tell a story of, 15, 16 in San Jose, trying to be a graffiti writer, or trying to navigate those waters. And, at a time where San Jose was really going after graffiti writers heavily and punishing them too. So prison time, jail times. And so for me, it was, hey, I'm also undocumented. Let me tell you that story. And those two kind of went hand in hand. It was, it was trying to shed this identity that was being placed on me by a large society. So as a graffiti writer, you're no good, you're just a vandal, you have no value. As an undocumented youth, you're undocumented, you have no value, you don't belong here. One being sent to jail, one possibility of being sent to jail, one possibility of being deported. So kind of similar boats, and the organization just really helped me step out of my shell and understand both of those things. So through design, I was able to tell my story as undocumented immigrant, and then also illustrate that story or illustrate similar stories as mine. And then really learn how to tell a story using color, design, shape, and form to really do that side of it as well too. So
yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, because Debug's history is so rich, and it's so important that they have this presence in San Jose, and we need more places like Debug, so that people such as yourself, youth that are kind of trying to find their way, can have a place to go to and really develop. So one of the things that you mentioned, and if you can share as little or as much as you want, but your identity or your this thing that is called being undocumented, which doesn't make anybody less human, but it's still in the media, the way that people are portrayed. There's so much negativity that is tied up with the term undocumented. So what has that been like for you, especially as a youth?
Yeah, so definitely growing up, I knew I was undocumented. It wasn't a secret. It might have been for a second, but I knew real quick. My mom kind of had a defense system to it, and she said, I'm just going to throw you in with the wolves, and I'm also going to take you out of your community and put you in with the wolves. That was more of a saying, that how she said it, which meant I don't want you to be around, I don't want you to get in trouble around the home. So I'm going to send you as far away as home as possible to more affluent schools that were out of our district, out of our area. And hopefully, you'll be able to just to blend in a little more. What really ended up happening is I just was in those schools and stuck out like a sore thumb. So part of, I think, even maybe she knew this or not, but part of what happened was I had to adapt to those environments. I had to adapt to an environment where I was maybe one out of 5 Latinos and maybe one of 2 undocumented Latinos. So the identity didn't really get a chance to stick on me so much because, as long as I didn't tell nobody knew. I was blending in, picking up mannerisms, watching television shows, listening to the same music as folks from here. So it didn't really hit me that hard as a child. It wasn't more until I got into middle school, high school, where I kind of started seeing it more, and mainly more through the news. So this is a Pete Wilson type era. This roller coaster of we love you, we hate you, you're gonna get deported, you're not gonna get deported, you're gonna get driver's license, you're not gonna get driver's license. Kind of this roller coaster that I mainly felt through my mom because she was the one that was going through a lot of that. She was working hard jobs that were paying below minimum wage or minimum wage, which at that time I remember her getting paid like $3 at one point. $3 an hour. So those were the kind of ways that I lived being undocumented. It wasn't definitely until I got into high school where I started getting closer to driving age, working age, where my peers were getting driver's licenses, getting cars, going on trips, and I kind of realized oh, I'm different. I'm not the same as these individuals. So it was tough. I think a lot of anger and frustration kind of set down and at the bottom of my being, mainly because of my mom. Like I said, that was the one struggle that I always seen. I always knew, I always seen myself as not American, but whatever the term American can become to me. So it wasn't like I was born here, or I saw myself as Anglo, or saw myself as privileged. But you know, to me, the true definition of American back then meant like, hey, I didn't come from here. I came here and I like made this country my own through whatever, you know, whatever it is that I seen. So I was still very much connected to my culture, my food, my gente, my language. But I was also in America, and so that meant like adapting to here and surviving. And so definitely like high school was a really unique experience for me, where I grew up telling a lie to individuals. Like, so it was just like, oh, I'm not undocumented. I can't travel because, you know, I don't want to go to Mexico no more. I've already been there so many times.
Oh, God.
I'm tired of it, you know. I can't drive because I got caught doing graffiti, which was like true. So it was like half truth, you know. Like, yeah, I had been to Mexico. You know, I was born there, and I came here as a 5-year-old. But that wasn't true. You know, I definitely wanted to go back, but didn't want to tell them that. I did get caught for graffiti, and the lie there was, oh, I got caught for graffiti, so they took my license away until I was 18. So cool. Oh, now it was cool. I couldn't drive. Cool. You got your license taken away. Your license taken away for something that you did bad. Oh, you're bad, man. That's cool. So it was like turning a negative into a positive. Even though at the end of the day, I knew I couldn't get a license. You know, I didn't get my license until I was 28. So, you know, just that kind of navigating those waters, which were lies. You know, telling, oh yeah, so I don't know my dad. I don't know my. Well, I lie. I kind of know my dad. But at that time, I didn't know my dad. So it was. Oh no, I do know my dad. He lives in New York and he's a lawyer. That's why I never see him. And you know, yeah, I don't really want to get into that. So it was more about kind of protecting myself with these lies. Similarly to like the lie that my mom kind of had me tell as a kid, which was like, well, I belong in these affluent schools, you know, which I didn't. Those schools weren't for me. I mean, they weren't created for me. I fit in and I made them work, but they weren't created for people like me, which was very apparent when you went to the schools and you'd look around. You know, I always tell people I never played football, soccer, for that exact reason. Because it was like, if I played that, it would almost be like calling myself out, you know. Well, that's the way I seen it. And you know, that's probably one of the things I regret more as growing up, was that I missed out on a lot of things that I think would have enriched my experience, or that were part of my culture. So being able to go back to Mexico now, all my cousins, they play soccer, you know, and they're really good, and and they have, it's a community, you know, it's like a family bonding thing. Even though I can get in on the field, I can't enjoy it the same way that I think I would enjoy it if I started at an earlier age. Again, but those are all protections that I kind of made up for myself in order to just kind of, you know, live as an undocumented youth at that time. Yeah, and this is definitely not the current situation that we're in now. This was like definitely don't tell nobody you're undocumented. This is before Dreamers or any of that, you know, DACA. So this is, you don't really want to be putting it out there that you're undocumented. So those are the ways that I kind of dealt with that growing up.
And I would ask you that at this moment, there's a lot of youth that don't even have DACA, right? For example, DACA was introduced in 2012, in 2012, and then Donald Trump recently said that back in September of 2017, he said he's going to cut the program. So there's this uncertainty, right? And so there's a lot of people that have DACA, and then there's a lot of people that never made it to being able to get DACA, right? And they're still left out of the loop. There's a lot of parents that are left out of the loop. So I guess my question to you is, what would you say to those youth that are stuck without, I guess anybody who is undocumented, but especially those youth without DACA, without anything, that are just, they have to maybe they're in the same situation as you. They're having to lie. They're having to say these things about, I don't want to travel, or I can't drive, I don't want to drive, or whatever it is, lying and hiding themselves, not being able to be themselves fully, because of this thing that's way bigger than they are, right?
Yeah. I would definitely, you know, it's tough for me to think about those type of things, because, you know, my situation, I felt, even to this point, is very unique. So I am documented now. I was able to receive documentation through a U visa, and even that experience was pretty unique and crazy. But yeah, I lied a lot. I hid myself a lot from the world. But it wasn't until I met D-Bug that I was able to live that. So before meeting D-Bug, I hadn't told more than one person in my life that I was undocumented. And then during one of our 5 o'clock editorial meetings that we have here at Debug every Tuesday at 5:30.
Which come to those if you
yeah.
can. Those are hella good.
One of those meetings was about 40 people full. So it was probably 2003. And for whatever reason, I just felt like, man, this is cool. Like, I could tell these folks because they're my gente. Like, I don't have to lie no more because the people I was lying to, they wouldn't understand, you know? And for whatever reason, I always felt like Debug was a place where it didn't matter how old you were, what color you were, what ethnicity, what sexual relation you had, you know, just whatever identity you created, it didn't matter. Like, I mean, it mattered because we seen that. Like, that was the difference. Is we didn't have you hide it and just go away. It was like, whatever that is, shit, bring it. And that's probably useful in a way to other folks, and maybe to yourself. So I came in as a kind of magician with this cloak over my Harry Potter cloak over myself, trying to hide that identity. But what Debug really helped me do is just tell that identity. So this was, again, pre-Dream Act, pre-anybody coming out, really. And I just said, all right, let's try it. So I told about 40 people that I was undocumented one day, just from cold turkey, not telling anybody. Boom, boom. Everybody knew my story. And it was liberating. It was, I remember tears coming out of my eyes that were not tears of, like, pain or sorrow. Or it was just something else, like, you know, just freedom. It was like liberation. So from that day on, I was just like, shit, I'm just going to tell everybody and anybody that wants to listen to my story about me being undocumented. So I was able to write about it. It got in the Debug magazine. We put it on the website. Other newspapers picked it up and ran it and told my story. And then other people were like, wow, I didn't know that about you. And then I started noticing the power of telling that story. So I went from being fearful and hiding to, shit, who wants to listen? I'll tell it to you. I started, you know, doing kind of like speaking engagements and talks at universities, libraries, you know, national conferences, and speaking to, you know, I remember being at a conference in DC one time to a group of 2,000 people, and, you know, Nancy Pelosi has just gotten off the stage, and, you know, we're sharing the keynote speaking, and she at that time is the head of the immigration caucus, so very easily could have, you know, got me deported or helped me out. You know, I don't know what's gonna happen, so I say, yeah, let's do this. I'll tell everybody right now what's up. And my first thing I say is like, yeah, so you just had Nancy up here, and, you know, here I am. I'm about to tell you this thing about myself, and then I tell everybody, and it became like, wow, shit, I've never heard anybody say that before. Like, I mean, that was literally the response I got from folks. I had never heard anybody say that they were undocumented before, and that just kind of, you know, like, inspired me to keep telling my story. And so something I would tell people now is like, you know, I mean, I'm not advising anybody to put themselves in danger, but then you also have to define what danger means, you know. And so for me, it was like at any point in those times, I know I could have got picked up, you know, by ICE, deported, had my mom deported, you know, could have gone into there were some serious consequences to what I was doing by putting myself out there like that. But I always said, you know what? Yeah, let them come after me. Like, I know what I'm about. I know who I am. I know what I'm doing here. And whatever happens is gonna happen. You know, maybe I wasn't meant to be here the rest of my life. Like, so, you know, like, part of that was empowering to myself too. Like, to say, nah, like, I'm not gonna let someone else hold that fear over me. And I think that for a second that kind of got lifted. You know, in the environment. You know, maybe in 2008's eras. Being a dreamer and being a Dream Act and DACA recipient was really strong and powerful. So I think a lot more people came out of the shadows, and that power kind of happened. Well, I mean, I think that was with, you know, the Dream Act. Like, the Dreamers were really popping off.
Cuando, like, because in 2012 is when DACA came out, and then
before 2012, this was when Obama kind of the Dream Act.
So when he was elected into office,
and it was like, oh yeah, hope was there, you know, and that was very inspiring for me because I was still undocumented at that time, and I was like, hell yeah, you know, I mean, I was still out in the open, but more people were coming out, you know, before that, people were calling me up, hitting me up, MySpacing me, Friendster, old school, hitting me up, hey, how do you travel? Because I was traveling a lot, you know, I was traveling maybe 2-3 times a month. New York, anywhere, Mississippi, anywhere that would have me, I was going. So people would see that and they say, man, you're undocumented. How the hell are you traveling? So I give them the rundown. Oh, use a school ID, use a this, a that, a Mexican passport. Like, you have the right to travel. Like, you just have to convince them
People,
the right.
The resources are out there.
They're out there, and
so
there. I remember seeing, you know, people asking me that, and then I seen their travels happen. So I was like, oh man, this is a thing. Like, you know, you got to use this power of you being able to tell that story and not having the fear to influence other people and to not have them, you know, feel like they're alone, because that's really what it is. It's like you feel alone, you don't want to tell nobody, you don't understand what the consequences, and it's fear, you know. So for me, like, I was liberated. I was able to tell people. Then I seen other people telling people, and then I felt like this is where it happened to me, where I kind of got discouraged. So I felt like the revolution was happening. The gente were like in the streets. They were telling people. They were not caring what the consequence was. Yeah. And then I felt like Obama gave him like the worst thing, which was DACA. To me, this is my own personal thoughts. So I was still undocumented. So DACA would have benefited me as well. But I said, no, I don't want that, because one, I felt like DACA was going to silence people. Silence that energy, that movement that was coming. It was something that, you know, if you put your finger in there, you could taste it, you could feel it.
I know in 2006 in high school, I was 14 at the time, and that was the first major walkout with a day without a Mexican, people wearing white shirts. I didn't understand at all. But why? Because I was born here. So even though you're Mexican, you have Mexican parents, my parents are migrants from Mexico, like, you don't understand what it is to be undocumented until you're in those shoes. Yeah. So even if you are Mexican, you cannot relate and you cannot understand. And so bringing it back to what you were saying, there was this big energy building, and then DACA comes along in 2012. And it's
so you take 2006 to 2012, man, it was just this growth, and it was happening naturally. It was people feeling that, like, oh shit, this is it, you know, like, you know, at least myself, I would always hear, if this doesn't happen, I'm going back to Mexico, you know. And so it was that energy, like, we're making it happen. And then DACA came, and I felt like, and so I always said, you know, that moment was really weird for me, because I said, I'm not gonna do DACA, because I came here with my mom, and DACA is just a distraction. It's gonna separate my mom and I. I'm gonna get DACA, my mom's not, and we're gonna look at each other, and we're not gonna be equal no more. That struggle that we went through is not the same. And it wasn't like DACA was gonna end up be a path to citizenship. So where, let's say I took it and my mom didn't take it, but then eventually I was able to get my mom in. That I would have taken it if that was the route, but it wasn't. It was like, well, who knows? It and it exposed me and exposed other people. So I never did DACA, and I held out. Luckily, within that time, I talked to a lawyer and I explained my situation, just kind of my life. When I was 15, I ended up getting in a fight with a 45-year-old white male. Lived in my apartment complex, and one day he just called me out and said, "You're a wetback. I hate you. I hate your people." So, you know, I was 15, and this dude was big, white guy. I said, "All right, we're gonna fight. We have to fight. You know, like, you can't tell me all that stuff, and I can't let you put me down like that. And my gente, you know, my people." So we fought. You know, it was nothing crazy. You know, at the end of the day, I always like to think that I you know, as a kid, you like to think that you won the fight. But this was also a man. So he left bruises on me, scars and stuff. I didn't call the cops. My neighbor called the cops because they seen it, and, you know, he was a male, and I was a kid. I'm pretty short already as it is, so it looked pretty bad. Cops came, they arrested him. You know, I was just there. I didn't like super cooperate. Didn't also keep it to myself. Crazy. You know, my mom cooperated as much as we could. He ended up going to jail for a year. Left it at that. You know, I struggled with it because, you know, when you have someone call you a wetback to your face and then you fight over it, you know, it leaves a scar. You know, it's not a physical scar. Those scars went away, you know, within a week. But my mom and I did definitely feel that. So because of that, 15 years later, I was talking to a lawyer, and I explained to that, and he said, "Well, you know, that moment that happened, that's assault. You were a victim of a crime." And I said, "What?" I never thought of it like that. And I said, "Oh yeah, I bet you there's a police report."
So real quick, for anybody out there, I did work as a legal assistant for an immigration lawyer for about 2 years, and so for anybody out there, you know, if you've ever been assaulted for any reason, if you've ever, I'm sorry that this is the case, but if you've ever had domestic violence, you've been in a situation like that, you know, you could go and see an immigration lawyer and talk to them about whether you qualify for getting a U visa. And when you get a U visa, you get the visa for, what was it? It's like 4 years.
4 years. You can apply at 3 years.
You could apply for residency. And so find out. There's resources out there. You know, if you have any questions, please always feel free to reach out to people that are giving this information because they know more info, right?
Yeah, and it oh man, it sucks because so when that happened to me was 2001 and 2002 the law came into effect, and mainly it was to protect the, battered women who were you know being beat up by their husbands, and then the fear of them being deported if they came forth or their husbands doing things to them, they would stay quiet. And basically, you know, our gente weren't getting anywhere. They were being abused by their you know, by their husbands, and then nothing was happening from it. So they created that law to protect the women, and then eventually kind of went out a little more to everybody, youth, the kids, and then now even you know if it's a pretty serious offense, you know, most likely there is some relief. And the thing that I liked about it was we could apply and not. And if nothing happened, if we didn't get it, we wouldn't be come after. You know, they would leave us alone. Luckily, I did get it. So, you know, for all that time, I could have had it. My mom would have been documented instantly. I would have been documented instantly, at least, you know, with the visa, and it didn't happen. But it happened, you know, when I was older, and that was real powerful for me. But I like to think that, like, you know, I just got lucky. But I don't know. It would have been a real test. I mean, it was a test. DACA was there, and I didn't do DACA. So it's tough, you know, and you know.
And if you would have had DACA, you wouldn't have been able
I wouldn't have been able to apply for that. So it was like this. It was this literally like 6-month period of my life that, you know, had me going against my own people because you know I was like my own gente. I was like, don't do it, you know. But it's kind of hard to tell somebody don't go and get these benefits, you know, because. You know, mainly why I was saying don't do it is because I also felt that energy just going down, you know, like, oh, they're giving us something now. Well, you better be quiet, too, because you better not have something and then, you know, keep fighting the man. Like, you got your thing now, you want to just stay quiet, you know? Yeah. So I did. I noticed it right away. The energy went down. You know, there were still definitely people who didn't get DACA, and they were still out there, and the parents were still out there. But I felt like that one core energy group kind of got turned down a notch or two, you know? And so now it's kind of the opposite, right? Now it's back to like, oh shit, people are getting deported. You know, there's fear, there's that. So I like to just, you know, I talk to my mom a lot about it, and I'm like, what do you feel with this current moment? You know, she's like, same thing, Nico. Like, can't have fear. Like, that's what they want. And like, what are you even fearing? Like, them sending us back or whatever. Like, you know, that's our home. Like, if they send us back, then we did what we had to do here, and now it's time to live our life somewhere else. But she, you know, my mom tells me this: I won't live in fear. I won't live in fear of Trump, and I won't live in fear of ICE, and I won't live in fear of anybody, because every step I take every day, every arm I lift is a positive one, and it's for a betterment. And so if they don't want that, cool. That's what she tells me, and she tells me that, and I know she's fearing. You know, I know she has it in herself because of the news and the stories and the people.
It's hard not to get affected.
How can you not? You know, but I like to think that at the end of the day, when she goes to sleep, she's calm enough to say, whatever happens, happens. Like, and so I also tell folks out there, have faith in your own situation, whatever it might be. Like, I was undocumented 27 years. You know, see, not that like just out there, and knowing that like. Whatever, I'm gonna do whatever I gotta do. So I was able to start a business legally. You know, applied for a business license, got it. Wholesale license, got it. Pay my taxes, you know, quarterly, yearly. And I was undocumented when I was doing that. So it was like, you know, just seeing my situation and then trying to figure out ways how to get out of that. You know, like, and then I see that all the time.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, Adrian is a graphic designer, printer, and business owner of After Dark Prints, and so they do business cards. Y'all do business cards, T-shirts, and we're gonna be wrapping up in about like 2 minutes. But feel free to talk about what your experience has been like, having After Dark and being a business owner, and what that process is like, and things like that.
Yeah. So I started the business here at Debug because it all came out of immigration. So you know I was always doing printing and design work in high school for groups and you know, people who needed it. And then when I got to the organization, I also needed, you know, we needed it. Similar groups to ours needed it. And I said, wow, wouldn't it be great if I just started a business that, you know, supplied this need to these individuals? And by that, it also helped me out because being undocumented, I didn't know where my next paycheck was going to come from. So I said, wow, why don't I just create my next paycheck? You know, I have a skill, I can design, and I can print, and I can, you know, and so I seen a T-shirt as like a blank dollar bill, and I was just like, well, just print the money, you know. So I would be printing T-shirts or stickers or banners or business cards, whatever it was. I always seen it as taking a raw good and converting it into income, not only for myself but for my family. And so, but at the same time, also providing a need for the community. So my business has definitely been encased within the community. A lot of my clients come from, the nonprofit world, from schools, from small groups. And so I always like to think that what I'm doing is not only providing them that product, but also providing them a service that is that relates to them, because I know where they're coming from. I know what their vision is. I know where they're trying to get to, and I've been blessed to be able to have that opportunity and to provide that, because I don't know what else I would have been doing, really. I am the art director for Debug, and I do have this position, and I have this whole time. But not everybody has a beautiful organization like this one to fall back on and to get that support, And so if anybody out there is seeking to start a business or that has that ability, like, do it. There should be nothing standing in your way. Making 40 cents is better than making no sense, there's always opportunity to grow, and there's legal ways to do it. You might not be able to go get a job, but you can definitely find how to get a business license and create this income that, that's out there for our gente. As a people, I go to Mexico. I've been blessed to be able to go back, and one of the things I love of our culture is how much there's how much ingenuity and hustle there is out there. You'll see people selling anything.
The tamale lady, paleteros, they'll
anything.
Figure it out, make money.
I have an aunt that sells, just clothes. She opens her door, starts selling clothes, puts it away, takes out something else, sells it, puts it away, and I'm just like, you're a seller of everything. Yeah. She's like, yeah, if it makes money, I'm selling it. It doesn't have to have a post. And this is, this is engraved in our blood, I think, in our culture. And so, I see my mom, she works 12-hour days every day. She doesn't complain. She's been doing it. She's loyal. So as far as us being workers, and, I always laugh when I hear that we're lazy and that we're stealing jobs, because those two things can't go, you can't be lazy and steal a job. Like,
it's fucking lazy.
It's not the same. So I'm blessed to be able to have, an opportunity to give back and to also, make a living for myself. I try to use my design work, my art, my skills to tell my story, to tell other people's story. I always tell people I tell my story because I know my story. I can't tell anybody else's story, but I can help someone tell their story, and that's what's been beautiful to me. I'm super grateful for the organization. I've like I said, I've been here, almost 17, 18 years, and I've seen a lot, and I've got to soak up so much game, but I've also seen the community grow so much and benefit so much from the individuals who make up this organization and other organizations similar to ours. So whenever I get a chance to tell this story, I'm more than willing to, because you don't ever know when someone might get inspired by what you're doing. The same way I was inspired by individuals who I didn't know that were turning paint and raw objects into beautiful creations of art, that then inspired me to do something with my life. And and now I'm blessed to be able to have youth in my life that I can now do the same or similar thing to teach.
Class here at Drake,
Yeah, I teach a youth class here at Debug, where I'm just teaching youth how to use raw materials to create art that can either bring them money or can help them express themselves. Because making money, there's nothing wrong with that. Especially if you're putting in the work and you're not getting over on anybody. You're putting that effort, then there's nothing wrong with that. And expressing yourself, these youth, I think, to have, even though there's more opportunities socially, like social media wise and internet wise, to connect with the rest of the world, I also feel like at the same time there's nobody helping the youth do that. It's almost expected of them. Oh, you know how to use a computer, you know how to use a phone. Well, you should be doing that. But it's like, I think it takes an older generation to come and to also facilitate that happening, just like it was facilitated to me. I had a story to tell, but I didn't know how to tell that story until somebody said, hey, here's some tools for you to do that. And it's all like circle of life, kind of repetition, being taught something, teaching it to somebody, and then seeing that flower. So I give the big props to the creator, to those who came before me and have helped me get to where I am at now, and hopefully I'm doing a similar thing by passing it on. And it just sucks right now. 2018, July is a real ugly time. from losing, you know, our young women, you know, women of color, to you know, seeing the separation of the family at the border, to even having to talk about a border wall again. I thought we were way past this, you know, but you know, I just want to tell the gente to stay strong and, you know, don't give up.
Stay strong, people.
You know, there's no reason to feel defeated, you know, because as long as you got a breath in, you know, in your body,
right.
You never know, you know. Overnight, things could change for you. And I always also want to tell people that when I went from being undocumented to documented, things changed for me, but who I am, I'm the same person, you know, like, and that's kind of like what I would like to even tell lawmakers or anybody that says, well, you know, this isn't going to change nobody. It doesn't change you, like, you know, overnight. It betters your life and it gives you better opportunities, and if you're true to who you are, you're gonna grow naturally. But it's not gonna be this, you know, I don't think that I'm American now because I'm legal or I have documentation. I don't even want to say legal, but I want to say documentation, right? Like, that doesn't change who I am. Like, you know, it's only enriched me, and it's only allowed me to give more to this country. You know, like, I pay more in taxes, I pay more in fees. You know, I travel, so I stimulate, you know, travel.
So that's something really important to highlight, because people, I don't know where people get this notion that, like, undocumented people don't pay taxes or stealing jobs, all these things. It's like, undocumented people pay taxes. They have an ITIN number. They still have to pay taxes. You know,
and we're not collecting Social Security.
They're not collecting Social Security and Medicare.
And Medicare, which are huge.
You know, so that's something really important.
Huge deficits for the country.
Yeah, so it's like, I really wish that people start moving in the direction of seeing people as human beings rather than, like, you're taking our jobs, you're taking our resources. I don't know where this notion comes from or why people feel threatened.
It's fear.
By people.
It's fear. It's a lot of fear, you know, because if you spend one day with my mom, I would love for you to take her job, you know. She would love it too. She'd be like, cool, I don't want to do this no more. Take this, you know, and I worked with her too for a lot of years. And it was real tough. I couldn't do that job all day, every day, 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, you know, but you know, it is. See us as human beings, and just spend a day with us if you have any, you know, any hesitations of who we are and why we are. But, you know, I'll tell straight up, I've never seen my mom owe money to anybody. Since we've been here, we've always paid our taxes. And I mean, I know this to be true for countless, and I'm not saying everybody's out there the same, but I can speak for a lot of people that I've come across that pay taxes, don't take anything from nobody. My mom has health insurance that she pays for. She's never taken free health insurance, nor could we. She's never collected not one dime of any kind of assistance money because we can't. And that's just what it is. Like, you know, we're not out here stealing no job, because if the job was up for grabs, hey, you have as much right to take it from us as much as we have it from you, you know? And most likely we won't, because once the hurdle of give me a Social Security comes up, you have one, I don't have one, that job is yours, that job ain't mine. Yeah. You know, and if you're qualified for the job, that job is going to be yours regardless, you know? So yeah, we're not those folks.
Yeah. It's really frustrating because our people are so talented, and they are magic. They literally are magic, and they create something out of nothing all the time. All people, all the time. We're talking specifically about Mexican people, but like all people, you know, we all have potential. But like, if we're talking about Mexican people specifically, our history is beautiful, and there's a lot of strife and struggle and violence and hate that has gone towards Mexican people, and I think that. A lot of the time it's intergenerational. It gets passed on through the generations, that trauma, right? And so we're still continuing to strive to be considered human beings and to live up to our full potential and to have the lives that we want to have, rather than being treated all the time like we're less, right? And so con eso, I want to thank you so much for your time. I really look forward to, as Haystack Mujer grows, we're going to do more interviews, hopefully. Get more of your story. You know, I feel like just in this short conversation here, there was a lot of goodies, you know. Hopefully people take away a lot from Adrian's story. And also get resources, you know, like whatever was said in this interview. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Adrian. I'm like totally opening you up for questions, but ask me. Like, I'll direct you to the people. If I don't know, I'll direct you to the people that know. In terms of resources, right? Because I think that once you, like you mentioned, you have this fear and you put yourself in isolation, and then you just fall deeper and deeper into that hole. But then once you start sharing, you know what, I'm this or I'm that or whatever it is that you're afraid of, once you start sharing, you know, you start shedding that fear, and you can breathe. you can breathe, and you start finding people, you start gravitating towards people that can help you, that can really give you the resources you need to get over the hurdle. You don't have to do this alone. Like, there's other people probably out there that are dealing with the same thing, whether you are undocumented, whether whatever it is that you're dealing with, there are other people out there that are struggling as well. You know, you don't have to feel alone. So con eso, thank you so much for your time, dude. Like I said, we're gonna be having hopefully more interviews down the line as we all continue to grow and continue to shed light on the stories that really matter, right? And so thank you so much, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Gracias.